What is up, everybody, and welcome back to Mount Mograph and Summit 37. In today's video, we're going to be making a delicious web build in Illustrator and After Effects. I realized I had never actually walked you guys through a more complex After Effects project and I don't know, just setting it up properly for animation and keeping things nice and streamlined. So that's what we're going to be making today. If you're a more advanced After Effects user, you might want to skip this video, but there are some cool tricks along the way. So I hope you guys like this one, and here it is. So yeah, this is it looks pretty fancy. It's nice and smooth, so I'll show you how to do that, and also this nice roll-on effect that I like. And that actually is a little bit weird. It's a little different, but I think it's fun. So let's go into Illustrator and get this set up. And this really won't take too long, I don't think. Yeah, it's just gonna be if I can remember what I'm supposed to do for today. So anyway, let's just go and create our first layer. This is gonna be working with a lot of layers right off the bat, so I'm just gonna try to stay organized as we start this. So I'm gonna first turn my stroke off because no one likes strokes. They always look kind of stupid. So let's make a new background layer, and I'm gonna pick kind of a bluish night blue, and then I'm gonna lock this layer and go and create a shadow for the bottom of my website just to make it look a little bit more interesting. And I'm gonna pick a I don't know, kind of gray color maybe. That looks that looks bad. So maybe something like that. And I'm gonna call this layer shadow and lock this layer. And then actually I'll just create a whole bunch of new layers right now just so we can work a little bit faster because I don't want to bore you guys. So now let's go and create a rounded rectangle. I'm going to drag this out, and with the rounded rectangle you can actually press up on your keyboard to make it more round if you didn't know that, and down on your keyboard to make it less round. Additionally, you can do left to make it a square and right to make it all the way round. So I'm just going to hold up for a little bit until I get a nice rounded look, something kind of like a Google Chrome. So that looks great. I kind of like that. So now I'm going to go into my color guide and actually set this to shades so I can work with a nice gray color scheme that I like. And then I will just center this in the middle of my artboard. And now we're good to go. I actually don't really like this shadow, but it should be all right. So I'm going to call this layer web background, and just press that this shape layer here and do Command C to copy it, Command F to paste in place, and go and create a rectangle just above it, something like this, and then just minus the front so we have this cutout. And I'm going to make this kind of gray, so now we have a nice two-tone background. And I'm going to lock this layer and go into our next layer. And this one is going to be our extra web background, and I'll show you why in a second. So I'm going to call it extra web background because that makes sense. And then I'm going to go and create like a little navigation bar looking thing, and just make it a different color. So now we have a three-tone website, and I'll lock that layer. So let's actually go up to the top over here and create some circles for our little tabs on the website, you know. So I'm going to grab my new layer and just draw a circle here and make this one green, and hold Alt and just drag this out a couple times. And then grab all three of them, go over to my align window, go to align to selection, and distribute it horizontally equally. So it looks like I actually did all right, but if you don't do that, they might not be equal, which would be annoying. So I'm going to drag this middle one to a yellow color, this bottom one to a red color, and now it looks just like a Mac or something. And then I will just drag these all onto their own layer by dragging this little square next to the layer. And then I'm going to call these green button, yellow button, and red button, because that's what they are. Ooh, that one is a yellow 9W button, which is very fancy. Red button, and then I'm going to lock these three layers, and we can continue building. All right, so let's actually go and create the arrows that would be on a website. So what I'm going to do is just grab a rounded rectangle and just draw and hold, and then as you can see, we can actually make this less or more. So I'm going to actually go a little bit more square, something like that. And let's actually grab our gray again and set that to a shade. And I'm going to kind of pick I don't know, a darker color like this. I'm going to hold Alt and drag this out, and hold Alt and drag that out. and rotate this 90 degrees and put it at the bottom of my other one, and then unite these objects and then scale it down. And then rotate this 45 degrees, and we now have an awesome arrow, just like that. So I'll just center these and then grab them both and combine layers and unite it. Ooh, actually did a bad job. I did not line it up well. So let me actually go back a couple steps, because that would annoy me. Let's see, and there we go. Now it's linked up a little bit better. And then rotate this 45 degrees, put this at the bottom of my other one, and just hold Alt and Shift and drag down, and we now have a beautiful arrow. And then I will unite these objects, and I still did that bad. Man, what is up today? So I'll drag this down, and let's see if that did better. All right, so that looks pretty good. Hold Alt and drag this out, so we have 2 arrows, and then now I just need to make one more thing. So I'm gonna hold Alt or hold Shift and drag out an ellipse till it's about the same size as this circle. Do Shift X to switch my fill and my stroke, and then I'm gonna just turn my stroke up until it looks to be about the right width. Then press P to bring up my pen tool, and just put a little extra point onto our circle. Press A for your anchor point selection tool and click this bottom anchor point of our circle and press delete, so we have a nice little moon shape or something. And then with this selected, go over into your stroke window and just make it rounded caps. And so that looks pretty good. And then we'll just go and create another little arrow deal. So do Shift X to switch your fill and your stroke if you didn't know that. And then we'll hold Alt and drag that out. And rotate this 90 degrees, get those together. Man, these are not lining up well today. All right, so there we go. Now those are together, and then I'll select both and unite these objects. And now what we have to do is grab our little half moon deal. And since this is actually a stroke, this wouldn't combine well. If I try to combine these things, they don't combine right. They get all messed up because this is a line or a stroke. So what we got to go do is go up to our object here and go down to expand, and this will expand our fill and our stroke. So make sure those are selected and say okay. So now it's a solid object. And then I'm going to rotate this arrow 45 degrees and just place this at the end of our little refresh button. Click unite so it's one object, and scale this down so it's about the right size. Actually, I will have to scale all of these down a little bit more. Something like that, and just put these wherever the heck you want. So this is going to be my forward button, and this is going to be my backwards button, and then I will just get these all equal-ish. I'll try to anyway, and yeah, that looks pretty good to me. It doesn't have to be perfect. Yeah, that looks good. So I need to get these all in their own layers. So what we're going to do is grab this first one and just grab one of the little icons and just hold that square and drag it to a new layer, and grab the next one and drag that to a new layer as well. So I'm going to call this one back button. This one is going to be front button. And then this one is going to be the refresh button. So that's not too bad to do. All right, so let's create our little tab button up here. So I'm just going to grab a rounded rectangle here and grab a new layer, press I to bring up my eyedropper tool and grab the same color as our other bar, and then just make a little tab here. I might actually scale this up and move it over, and that looks pretty good. So I'm going to call this layer tab for tab. That's self-explanatory. Go to another one and call this tab info, and we are going to just create a little line here for some fake information that you'd see. We don't really want to. I'm going for a minimal kind of design with this one, so I'm not going to actually like type in words, though you could if you wanted to. This next one is going to be tab close, and we'll do the same thing. I'm just going to make this the same size as that guy, and just put it over here. So now we have a tab close. As you can see, this is pretty easy, but we'll have a nice look when we're all done. So let's make the search bar. I'm just going to make a new layer and call it search. Grab my rounded rectangle tool and just drag out to about this size. Looks pretty good. Do Shift X to switch my fill and my stroke. And then I'm going to select my stroke layer and actually make this kind of like a blue. And then go back to my fill and set this to white. Well, that's not white, but it's almost white. So let me just try that again. All right, so now we have this nice blue outline that looks very googly. I can't believe I just said that, googly. So we got our search bar. I'm going to lock that layer. I'm going to go over here and call this menu. And we'll add those little menu icons that are always on the side of everything now. So I'm just going to draw another rounded rectangle and make it this color, and actually get rid of my blue stroke because we don't want that anymore. Hold Alt and drag out twice, and then grab all three of those and go to horizontal distribution and vertical distribution just to make sure they're equal. And then select your menu and go to release layers to sequence. And I'm just going to drag these out and call this menu 1. Menu 2, and oh, that was menu 3, but yeah, I'll call this menu 2 then, and menu 2, because we're going to want to animate these all separately. And then I'll lock these layers and just continue building. So let's make a little star over here for bookmarks. So I'm going to call this star bookmark. As you can see, this is very easy, and as long as you think about what you want to make, the whole process is so much easier. So I'll just put a little star over here. Something like that looks good. And then let's just go add a little bit extra content in this search bar. So I'm going to call this like search button, and just come over here and add a little square just for some extra content. I'm not spending too much time with the color scheme, so if it looks bad, I'm sorry about that. I'm just kind of doing it quick and randomly. So now I got a little square here. I'll try to center this up a little bit, and I'll lock that one, lock my star layer, and create a couple more layers. And I'm going to call this one search content. And I'm going to now drag another square out over here to about that size. Looks good, and just make it a different gray. Oh, I'm doing my stroke, so I'm actually going to turn my stroke off, select my fill layer, and just make it kind of a lighter gray, and that's starting to look kind of good. So now we need a navigation bar that we're going to put over here. So let's just lock our search content layer, go over here and type in nav bar, just to stay nice and organized. I'm going to use a rounded rectangle here, and I'll just drag out something like this. Looks good, and just make it a different color so it stands out. And that is looking pretty dang good. So I'm going to save this actually to my desktop. Well, I can, just in case I do something stupid and destroy it. So I'll just make sure that's saved. And now we can create some website content. So let's just create some squares, some colored squares. I think I did that in the example. So I'm just going to make this first one orange. Go to this next layer. I'll make this one like a light blue. And go to this next layer. I will make this one green. That looks fine. Another layer. I will make this one purple. So just something like, or I guess blue. Blue is fine. And then I will just create a couple more layers and make a second row. And this one will be tiny. And we'll make this one red. Oh, I said red, but I pressed orange. That was stupid. And go over here and select a lighter green. Also, sorry guys, I really am trying to get back to everyone's emails. If I'm missing you, I do apologize. It's kind of hard to just stay on top of it. I got some other stuff going on too, but you guys are all awesome, and I really appreciate hearing from you. And I promise it's not like I'm ignoring you as much as I'm just like busy sometimes, and I kind of just miss it or forget, or I don't know. You know how it is. But anyway, yeah, you guys are all awesome. And I love hearing from you guys or seeing what you guys do. So if you want to, feel free to email me, and I'll try my best to get back to you. If I don't, like I said, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just being lazy, or I don't know. Yeah, that's funny. All right, so we got this content here, and I'm just going to leave these content layers just as is. I'm not going to name them because they're not that important. And I don't know, they're kind of named just by layer. We'll remember that. So we actually have one more thing to do. I'm actually going to unlock all these website layers real quick and just zoom in and grab this navigation bar and my little window, or my little tab here, and then create a new layer and do Command F to paste it on that. Oh, what did I just do? No, I'm going to lock all my layers except for that new layer here, and do Command F to paste it on that new layer, which I did wrong. So let me try this again. All right, so I'm going to grab my little tab and my tab bar, and then do Command C to copy it, lock all my layers and go onto a new layer here and do Command F to paste it in place and unite that layer and just make it a different color. And I'm actually going to drag it like up here so I can see it. And that looks good. And what I'm going to do is go into my stroke, and I'll show you this little trick. So I'm going to scale up my stroke to like 8, so we have 8 points. Go into object and expand it, and say okay. And what this does is like proportionally scale up your object, instead of like distorting it one way only. If you were to normally scale it up, it gets messed up. So I'm going to unite this, and so now we have a slightly larger object that is scaled up perfectly. I'll make this kind of like a grayish white, and then I'm just going to cut these sides here. So just do minus front, and then over here do the same thing. And this is going to be like a little background for our website tabs, which actually look pretty nice. So then I will just cut this bottom so it's not too big, and then I will name this layer web highlight, and I'll put this web highlight layer between our web and our web extra layer. And now we have a nice line going around it that we'll be able to animate on separately. So we are just about there. Our website is built, but now we need to make our little roll effect, which is actually pretty easy. It's going to be 3 layers. So I'm going to create 3 more layers, and let's first create a circle. So I'm going to make a circle layer, something like that. And let's do a nice kind of grayish color. That looks good. And then I'm going to actually copy this layer and Command F to paste in place and drag it onto its own layer and drag it down to the bottom here. And I'm going to make this color a little different and do Command C and Command F to paste in place, Alt and Shift to scale down. So now, I don't know, it just looks like the end of a roll of something. And then what we're going to do is grab a rectangle and just do I to grab this same color, and just draw a rectangle that is the same width as the radius or the diameter of our circles, and then put this on its own layer. Actually, there we go. So now it's on its own layer. So I'm going to call this bottom roll, top roll, and middle roll. And the reason we're doing this is because now we can scale up our tops and bottoms equally instead of getting them like to turn into an oval when we scale them. So that's a nice trick. So we are all set up to go over into After Effects and animate this effect. And yeah, I don't think that was too bad. So just do Command S to save it. Actually go into your file and make sure it is the color mode is RGB, so we get that vibrant colors. Which I actually got some emails about the difference between CMYK and RGB, which is just RGB has a wider color like gamma or whatever it is, has a larger color range than CMYK. So anyway, we have our project all built. So I'm going to do Command I to import our website, make your import as composition, retain layer sizes, and say open. And I'm just going to double click in here, and we have our website in After Effects that we just built, and the colors look perfect. So I'm going to be using a move anchor point script and an ease and whiz script like always, or recently like always, and those are in the video description if you'd like to use them. They're both free. This one you should pay for, but you don't have to, just because it's awesome and the guy did a great job with it. So yeah, let's jump into our animation. First, I'm going to go down and grab my background layer and my shadow layer and just lock them, and then click this little shy guy here and click shy. So now they're out of our view and we're not going to get annoyed with them. And then yeah, we can just start animating. So I'm going to grab my web background to my layers 27, so everything but this roll, and do Shift Command C to pre-compose them, and I'm going to call this web content. And then I will press enter and click into my web content composition, and now it's on black, but I'll show you why in a little bit why we did that. So first what I'm going to want to do is I'm thinking that it's going to roll from this side over to this side, so I'm going to want to animate on from this side to this side so our content looks interesting as it goes across. So first, I think the first content we're going to animate is going to be these little buttons up here. So I'm just going to click these buttons, see where they are. So they're right here. And I'm going to zoom in on my timeline by pressing plus on my keyboard, and then go to about a second and press S to bring up my scale and click my scale, and then go backwards a little bit and turn my scale down to 0% on all these layers. Grab all my layers, go to my ease and whiz script, and go down to back and set it to out. So this means it's going to jump a little bit too far before it settles on the right size, and click apply, and this will add the expression to our little pluses here. So now when I play this, you'll see they kind of get too big and then settle on what they're supposed to. So I'd like this to come on in a staggered order. So what I'm going to do is just stagger my yellow and my red, just drag these over a little bit by eye, and then my red will be last. So now they're going to come on in a nice little ripple effect, which looks good. So that is our first little thing we have to do. Now what we're going to want to do is probably pop up this tab. And so what we're going to do is just go over to our tab layer. As you can see, this is super easy. And just on my move anchor point, I'm going to click this bottom point. So my anchor point is now at the bottom, and press S to bring up my scale, and unclick my constraint proportions and set a keyframe. And then just go backwards a little bit in time and just scale my Y down to 0. So now it's going to kind of pop up like this, but that's boring. So I'm going to select these layers and also make sure it's on back and out, and click apply. So now it's going to shoot out too far before it settles on where it needs to be. So that looks pretty good. I actually will go back to this first keyframe here that I set to 0 and actually set this down to negative, because this ease and whiz script is based on momentum. So now it's going to actually jump up more and be a little bit more exciting. So that looks good. And so as this has come up, I'm going to want to actually pop on this little tab information bar. So I'm going to press S on my keyboard and click this anchor point over here on the side. So it's popped over here, and just go for it a little bit in time and set a keyframe, unclick my constraint proportions, go back in time a little bit, and turn my X property down to 0. So now it's going to pop out just like that. I'm going to select both of these and go over to my easing and set it to expo, which is the fastest kind of ease, and set it to in and out, and click apply. So now it's going to pop out nice and smooth, and as it's popping up, I may as well bring in this other little guy right here. So I'll press S for my scale and set a keyframe, and I'm just going to scale this one proportionally. So I'm just going to press 0 on my keyboard and have that one down to 0. Select both of these and give it a different easing type, so it all has a different kind of movement. So I'm going to set it to quint and click apply. And so now we're going to have a nice little pop up. That's all looking very nice. So now what we need to do is probably do something with our search bar. So I'm going to grab my search bar here and set my move anchor point to this side of it, so we can just pop it out nice and easy, and press S to bring up my scale properties. And just as this tab is popping up, you always want to keep stuff moving in motion graphics. So I'm going to unclick my constraint proportions, click my scale property, and turn my X down to 0. And then I'm going to go forward in time to kind of far away, and maybe like a little after 3 seconds, and set it up to 100. And now, let's see, it's going to just scale up very slowly, which will look good. So I'm going to grab those 2 keyframes here and set my easing type to court and click apply, just so it's once again a different kind of movement. And so that's going to pop up nice and smooth. That looks good. So right as it's reached the star, I'll pop in the star. So as you can see, this is pretty logical now that we've named it and built it in order. So I'll press S on my keyboard to bring up my scale properties, go forward a little bit after this search keyframe is here, and press the scale button on my star, go back in time and set my star to 0. And then I will grab both these keyframes and set it to circ once again for a different kind, and click apply. So now let's see how this is looking. Nice, this is all coming together pretty well. So let's do something actually with our search information. So I'm going to grab this bar and actually set my move anchor point to this side, just so once again it is doing something interesting. Press S on my keyboard, unclick my constraint proportions, click your scale button, and set your X down to 0. Go forward in time a little bit and set this to 100. And now for some more interesting movement, what we're going to do is select both these keyframes, go into our ease and whiz, and set it to bounce, and only set it to bounce out. So this means on the out point of its movement, it's going to actually bounce. So if I click apply, we'll see that it now has a little bounce effect. So that looks cool, and that should be fun. So now let's go back in time and see what else we can start adding in. So I kind of like that this staggers in, and then it would be cool if we staggered in that next row. So I'm going to stagger those in. After those are in, I'm going to grab all 3 of these and press S on my keyboard and just set a scale keyframe, and then just drag this forward a little bit and set all of these to 0. So that looks cool. And then you know what I should also do is press R on my keyboard for the rotation and set this to negative, I don't know, negative 58 or something. And then press Shift S to also bring up our scale properties, go forward to our scale properties and set our rotation to 0. So then I'll grab those keyframes and set this to a back and out, and just set those keyframes, and then go down to my second portion and also set those to back and out. So our first one is the back one, so I'll leave it as it is. I'll move my front one forward a little bit, something like that, and my refresh button, I move those keyframes forward so it's also staggered, and then I will do this search button last, so I'll move this even farther forward. So now when I play this, they're gonna spin and just have a nice little funny movement to them. It's just a little comical and a little lighthearted. I don't know if that makes sense, but here, let me zoom in for you guys. It's going to be a little bit slower, and it kind of has like a little pop and a wiggle to it, and that looks pretty cool to me. All right, so we have those in. Let's do something to our menu bar over here. So I'm going to click all these menu bars and set my move anchor points to actually this right side over here, and press S on my keyboard to bring up my scale and set a keyframe, and then unclick my constrain proportions like we've been doing, and just go backwards in time and set my X to 0, and then go and click these and set my easing type to expo and my type to in and out. Click apply, and then I'll just stagger these. So we got them all coming in at once. I'm probably going to want this second one to come in a little bit after, and then this last one to come in also after. So it's all about staggering and just keeping things moving and a little interesting. This is looking pretty good so far, and there we go. They come in kind of slow actually, so I might grab them all, hold Alt on my keyboard, and just scale these all down. If you didn't know, you can hold Alt and just like grab keyframes, hold Alt and click them, and just move them like that, and that'll just keep your movement, but change the time on your movement, if that made sense. I tried to explain it. I promise I try to explain stuff, but sometimes I don't even know how to explain stuff. So anyway, we have our website being built. It's looking pretty good so far. What I'm going to want to do is probably pop in this little white highlight. So I'm going to go down and find my web highlight here and set my move anchor point to the bottom. So it's at the bottom of this thing. And let's see. So once my tab is in, that looks good. I'll press S to bring up my scale, unclick my constrained proportions, go back in time just a little bit and change my Y to 0, and then also do Alt back bracket to cut that layer. So when like these layers are still popping up, we don't see it, because if I hadn't cut that layer, it is going to be visible at some point. So just cut that layer, do Alt back bracket to cut the layer on our timeline, and then grab both these layers, and I'm going to set it to a what would be cool, a quint in and out, and click apply. So let's see how our website is all looking. So everything's coming in nice and smooth. It looks interesting. All right, so now we just need to animate this navigation bar and all this content in here, and we are good. So I hope you guys are having fun with this. Drop me a comment or leave me a like if you've learned anything or like my videos and want to see more. Yeah. It's always good to hear from you guys, and I hope this video doesn't suck. I just wanted to do something different, so yeah, it's not always going to be great, but I try. I promise I try. So I'll just set this scale to my navigation, unclick my constrained proportions, go back in time, make sure my move anchor point is at the top over here, and set my Y down to 0. And then what I'll do is just add a bounce to this as well. So I'll grab those keyframes, go over to my easing whiz, and set it to bounce out, click apply. And now it should bounce out. Pretty interesting. That looks good. All right, so now that we have all those built, let's actually hide these for a second so we can see what's going on. So I'm going to grab all my layers, except for my ones that are actually called layer, and click this little shy guy so they disappear, but they're still here if I unclick that. And let's just grab all of our content here. Press S on our keyboard, hold Shift and R to also bring up our rotation properties, and just set a keyframe on all our scale and all our rotation, and just go back in time a little bit and turn our rotation to like -35 and our scale down to 0, and then grab all these keyframes and set it to a back and out and click apply. So now they're going to kind of spring into place. Let's see. Yeah, that looks good. And then all we're gonna do is just stagger these layers a little bit. You can just do a little bit random if you like, or do it in a specific order. I'm just going to drag these wherever. I don't have a plan for them, but it'll be cool just to have the content come in a little bit random actually for this one. So let's see. Yeah, that looks cool. So we are just about there. It goes over each other a little bit. So I'm actually going to grab all of these and just set this to an expo and click apply, and that'll keep it so it doesn't over rotate into each other. Yeah, so that actually does look better. I wasn't liking that before. So I'm with all those layers selected, I'm going to do Shift Command C to pre-compose them, and I'm going to call this web information. And I'm going to go up into my effects and presets and type in drop. If I can. So drop, and just put a drop shadow on these for a little bit more interest. Give it a nice look, and I'll turn my opacity down to maybe 29 and turn my distance up to like 8. So now it just looks a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to unclick my shy guy, and all my layers are built. It looks great. And so let's go back into our first composition, our website, if you remember that. And let's see. So now we have our entire build. That looks pretty nice. You know, this doesn't take a long time. It's all just about like setting it up to begin in a good way. So there we go. We have our website being built on. And now I'm going to show you that sneaky little effect to get it to look like it rolls on. So first what we're going to have to do is go right click and go new and set a null object. And then I'm just going to move my anchor point to the middle of my null object and put my null object about in the middle of this bar here. I'm going to grab my middle, my top roll, and my bottom roll, and make these with my pick whip over to my null object, and I'm going to call this this null object bar mover. So that looks good. I'm going to move my bar. So now when I move my null, the other layers will move. I'll put it right at the start of this this layer here, and I'm going to set it to P for position and set a keyframe, and just go forward in time until my website is starting to be built. So maybe the navigation bar is about here, and I'm going to move my my roll over to this side, and then grab both these keyframes and set it to a quad for a nice slower movement, and set my type to in and out and click apply. So now it's going to look like it wipes over the top of our website as our website's being built on, which is a kind of cool looking effect. But now what we're going to want to do is scale this all up. So I'm going to grab these layers here and press S on my keyboard, and on my middle roll I'm going to press the scale keyframe for 100% and move that forward, and then unclick my constraint proportions and turn my X down to 0. So this is going to kind of only scale up from the middle out. And then I'm going to grab both these keyframes here and set this to a quint and for a different movement, and click apply. And then go forward to 100% of that scale, and on my bottom and top roll set another keyframe and go backwards in time and set those to 0. So remember how I said we wanted to do it like that? It's because if we had all this in one layer, the circles would turn into ovals if we scaled it up like this. So it's good to have them separate. So I'll just click apply. And now when I play this, it's going to look like it actually rolls out because those are round edges. So as those roll out, I'm going to also have them, I might have that actually pop up a little quicker. That's very slow. So let's see. So it kind of pops up, and then I'm going to want to set keyframes on all of those, and then just go forward to the end and set those to 0. So now it's going to look like it kind of rolls out and all the content's gone. So let's see how this is looking. So it pops up and it's rolling, and then it starts to get smaller. And there we go. So our website will be all built up. So that looks cool. Now what we're going to want to do is one more sneaky effect. What we're going to do is create a square here, and just make your square a little bit bigger than the website. So something like this, and put your square a little bit before where the website is. And then parent, I'm going to call this, if I can click it here, I'm going to call this layer website mask. And then I'm going to parent this website mask with my pick whip to my bar mover and put my website mask above my web content. On my web content, set this to an alpha matte. So now when I play this, it's going to look like it's wiping on the website. So that looks pretty cool. We might have to, yeah, so that actually worked perfectly. So as you can see, that is a very sneaky way to make this effect. And if you want to, you can actually add on your middle roll here, you can add a drop shadow. So I'll just put a drop shadow on my middle and turn my, my drop shadow over to this size and just change my distance up. And now when it plays, it's going to look like it is actually has some depth to that and is rolling over the top. So yeah, this was today's video. I hope you guys had fun with it. I know it was a little different than my other videos, but I thought it was kind of cool nonetheless. You know, like this is actually like the production side of it. I thought it would be cool to show you like an entire piece, and I think it's a cool effect. So I hope you guys had fun with this today. If you like this video, leave me a like or drop me a comment, and I'll keep putting up some cool stuff. At least I call it cool. I don't know if you guys like it or not. But yeah, this was Matt from Mograph, and get your learn on. Peace out.